Please be seated. The court is now back in session. For this afternoon's proceeding, the chamber will continue to hear the testimony of witnesses somehow who will be questioned by the defense teams. Before I hand over the floor to the defense, I'd like to give the floor to Judge Lavange first to put a few questions to this witness. You may proceed, Judge Lavange.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Sim Hao. You must be wondering who I am or where I am. I am seated opposite you.
Bien.
Very well. I have very few questions to put to you. I would like you to clarify this matter, what you did from the time when you arrived in Phnom Penh town after the 17th of April 1975.
J'ai l'impression qu'il y a un écho.
I have the impression that there is an echo which is very painful. Can that problem be solved? It is very disruptive.
Voilà, je vous demandais, monsieur.
What I am asking of you, sir, is whether you can tell me exactly what you did from the time when you arrived in Phnom Penh, that is after the 17th of April 1975, and the time when you left for Kampong Som.
Vous avez expliqué que vous avez été.
You did explain that you were at kilometer 6 and that you were at Sheng Shamres. Did you go to any other places?
After the liberation, that is the liberation of Phnom Penh city in 1975, and when I left kilometer number 6, I did not become a laborer yet. I was sent first to Psa-Chas area, so I could be demobilized from the army position, and I stayed in that area for about a fortnight, and then my group was transferred to Kampong Som.
Vous avez hier.
Yesterday, you stated that there was someone in charge of Kampong Som port, and that person also had duties in the Ministry of Commerce. You also said that person was called Tan Nyem. Do you remember Tan Nyem?
As for Ta Nyam, I can't recall him. And even though I worked in that area, I never met him in person. I only heard of his name as in charge of the Ministry of Commerce.
Et avant que vous ne partiez.
And before you left for Kampong Som, do you know whether Tan Nyem had duties and responsibilities in Phnom Penh? And if yes, What were those duties and responsibilities?
Before I left for Kampong Saum, I did not hear of the name of Ta Nham. Only upon my arrival in Kampong Saum, then I heard of his name, and that we who were in the battalion was under the supervision of Ta Nham, who was in charge of the commerce. So all the laborers who worked there at various warehouses were under his supervision.
Est-ce que tous les ouvriers des entrepôts
Did all the workers at the warehouse come from divisions that were under the authority of the North Zone? Was Ta Nham a member of a division that was under the authority of the North Zone?
The forces that were sent as laborers to work in Kampong Saum were part of the division of the North Zone, but Ta Nham was not my previous divisional commander. I only knew that my battalion was under the supervision of Ta Nham, as he was in charge of all the Kampong Saum ports.
Est-ce que vous savez
Do you know when Ta Nham was arrested, and possibly for what reason he was arrested?
I did not know about this internal affair of the party. Only later, when I returned to Phnom Penh, and it was Taret who came to take charge of the Ministry of Commerce, said the person from Nham, who was previously in charge of commerce, had been removed, and Ta Nham Taret came to replace this Nham.
et est-ce que vous avez entendu dire que Ta Nham
Did you hear that Ta Nham was dismissed because he was a member of Koi Thun's network?
No, I did not hear anything to that effect. However, his removal would mean that he was connected to the treacherous network of Koi Thun, and they both came from the North Zone.
Vous avez parlé également de Chi.
You also referred to Chi, who was Ta Nham's secretary. Yesterday you talked about his arrest. Can you tell us the reasons why Chi was arrested?
The reason for the arrest of Comrade Chi was that at that time, Chi was the messenger of Nham, and Nham had been arrested. So the messenger had to be removed as well. That's all I knew, but I did not know the actual details behind these arrests.
Je vous remercie beaucoup.
Thank you very much, sir, for these answers. I have no further questions for the witness, Mr. President.
President, thank you. The floor is now given to Keo Sampon's defense to put questions to this witness. You may proceed. Kong Samon, thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, President, Your Honors. And good afternoon, Mr. Witness. My name is Kong Samon. I'm the counsel for Keo Sampon, and I have some questions for you. I'd like to clarify on your personal biography, as you stated before the chamber already. That is document IS 19.177. On the first page, that is Ian in Khmer 00 0553 657, and in French 00813944, and it does not exist in English. I'd like you to be more specific on the date of your periods that you worked. Were the dates that you used really specific, or it was just based on the likely period that you thought? That is, for example, the 15th of June and the 3rd of February 74 and the 3rd, excuse me, and March 1975. And there is no date for that, the third line. And the last one is the 14. And the next one is the 18. And the sixth line is the 15th of June 75. And next 17th of March 77, and the last one is 28th of May 77. Can you tell us whether these dates are the actual dates of your employment? My apology, Mr. President, and maybe the French EN is not correct. It is IS 19.177. Answer. The dates that I used is based on my recollection of the events. That is when I left and when I started working at various places. And that's purely based on my recollection of the events that took place after 1975, and that I spent a year in Kampong Sao, and that upon my return, I knew that I spent some time at that location, and then I was transferred to another location. So all the dates are based on my recollection. Question. You also stated before this court that is when you became a laborer in Kampong Sao, and that you experienced an event of an aerial bombardment, and you said that the plane was the United States plane. Can you recall That is what you testified before this court? Answer. Yes, I recall the event clearly. We did not even start working yet when we arrived, and that happened within the fortnight of our arrival in Kampong Sam from Phnom Penh. The airplane dropped bomb, but it did not drop on the ship, and it hit the warehouse near the coast. Question. Regarding the dates that you mentioned in your biography, which one is the actual date that you started working in a Kampong Sam port? From what I can read in your biography, it seems that you started working in Kampong Sam in 1975, but there is no actual mentioning of Kampong Sam. You said that you was a laborer at an abbreviated word called SAW within the commerce section, and the date is 15 May 75. Is this the time that you started working in Kampong Sam? Answer. I think there are some points that are missing in the biography, but in fact I was a laborer in Kampong Sam as I testified and mentioned in my biography. Question. Is it the date on the 15th of May 75 when you went to work in Kampong Sam as a laborer? Answer. Yes. It was the 15th of May 1975. Question. You stated that about 10 days after you arrived in Kampong Sam and you didn't start working yet, there was an aerial bombardment and it hit a warehouse in Kampong Sam. Does it mean that the aerial bombardment was toward late May 1975? Answer. That is correct, because after we arrived we didn't start working yet, and it was about 10 days, a fortnight after our arrival, there was a plane and it came to drop the bomb. Question. Did you personally witness that aerial bombardment? Answer. The plane was flying in circle from warehouse in Klang Le and through the port, and we could see it flying in circle, and we also heard the noise from the plane. And only when we went to work, we saw the damage that was done by the bombardment to the warehouse. Question. My question is, did you witness the plane coming to drop the bomb? Answer. I heard the noise from the plane and I did see the plane flying. Question. How many planes there were? Answer. There was only one. Question. At the time, did you know what type of plane it was? Answer: No, I did not. I only saw it flying. And there was only one plane that dropped the bomb. Question: You also testified that there was no casualty. And my question to you is the following: After that aerial bombardment, did you actually go to the location where the bomb was dropped? Answer: The location that was hit by the bomb could not be reached immediately after the bombardment. That one thing. And another thing is, it was quite a while before laborers were allowed to carry goods from the ship to Klang Le warehouse. But when it comes to casualty, there was none. Only the warehouse was destroyed. Question: Can you describe to us the kind of destruction that you saw? Answer: Allow me to clarify it. During the bombardment, we didn't know whether it was the intention of the pilot or whether it aimed to hit the ship, but it in fact hit the warehouse. And the warehouse was about 100 meters from the coastal line. And there was a big hole on the roof of the warehouse, and there were also other minor damages. Question: After the aerial bombardment, were you called for meetings by any cadre or people who oversaw the warehouse regarding that aerial bombardment event? Answer: I was not called by any senior cadre for a meeting regarding that event. We were simply laborers, and we focused only on what we were assigned to do, and we did not know about the duties or tasks or meetings of the upper cadres. Question: Let's return to a time period that you saw Khieu Samphan coming to visit a warehouse in Tuol Tumpung. Can you recall that you testified to that effect before this court? Answer: Yes, I saw him with my own eyes. At that time, I was a laborer to screen the product and package it for export. Mr. Khieu Samphan was walking along the road, and what he said was what I stated before this court already. He didn't chit-chat for long with the laborers. He only asked us to work hard and to screen properly because the products were meant for export. Question: Did you know Khieu Samphan before you met him at that time? Answer: No, I never knew him. I only saw him at that time. And before he came to inspect the products there, as I described, Wandrat, who was the chairman of the commerce, instructed us that we had to work properly, as Khieu Sampon would come to inspect the products. Question: allow me to confirm that you never knew Khieu Sampon previously, but one day before or one day earlier, Wandrat informed you about the visit by Khieu Sampon. Am I correct to say that? Answer: yes, that is correct. Question: can you recall the physical appearance of Khieu Sampon at the time? Answer: yes. He was of a small build and he was not that large or fat. Question: what kind of clothes did he wear at the time? Answer: he wore a black uniform. Answer: did he wear a jacket, the one that you are wearing now? Answer: yes, he wore a jacket like what I am wearing now. Question: what about the trousers and the shoes? President: witness, please wait until you see the microphone is activated. President: witness, please respond to the question. Witness: it was a normal trouser, but I did not observe what shoes he wore at the time. Question: did he wear glasses at the time? Answer: I cannot recall that, but to my recollection he did not. Question: did you hear Khieu Sampon's name before you actually met him in Tuol Tumpung? Answer: I only heard of the name in the three meetings per month, as I said yesterday. That is the meeting that was held every 10th day, and that was chaired by Wandrat, who was in charge of domestic and overseas commerce, and all the laborers knew who he was. Question: my question to you is, did you know the name of Khieu Sampon previously or before you saw him? But I only heard that you spoke about the meeting where Wandrat told you. My question is, let's say before 1975, did you hear his name? Answer: I did not know him, but I heard of his name quite a long time ago. Question: Did you know of his position or a function before 1975 when you heard of his name? Answer: At that time, and it's not just only me, but people knew of Khieu Samphan's name and of Hunam and Hujun, but I did not know of his actual position or function, but we heard of his name long before 1975. Thank you. Question: Did you hear of the GRUNC? That is the GRUNC, which is the abbreviation in French language. Answer: My apology, I'm not clear on your question. Did you ever know or heard of the royal government for the reconciliation, which has been abbreviated in French to GRUNC? Answer: No, I cannot recall that.
Thank you. How about the National United Front of Cambodia? Have you ever heard of that? The National United Front of Cambodia, I heard it from time to time during the meetings. Question: When exactly did you hear about it? Response: I heard of it when I was working as a worker in Phnom Penh. It was somewhere near Tuol Tumpung. Vanrat told me about it. It was sometime in late 1979. Question: Did you hear about it in late 1979? Are you sure? Can you repeat this statement? Response: I heard of it in 1979. It was in early 1979, not late 1979. Question: Early 1979, which month is it, to be precise? Do you recollect? The President: Witness, please be reminded that you observe a small pause in between the question and answer, and observe that your microphone is activated before you speak. Counsel, can you please clarify it? You said you heard of the National United Front of Cambodia in early 1979. To be precise, what month was it that you hear of it? Response: I do not recall the months. It could have been in January or February 1979. But I do not recall the exact months. Question: Do you recall who told you about this United Front of Cambodia? Response: I heard of it. There was meeting which Vanrat was the one who made it known to others during each meeting, which were held once or twice a month. Question: So are you saying that you heard this word actually from Vanrat? Is that correct? Response: That is correct. Question: When did you get to know Wanrat? Response: I do not recall. But I got to know him in 1977 when he was assigned with that position, but I do not recall the exact month. Question: did you ever hear of Wanrat's name before 1977? Response: no, I never heard of his name prior to 1977. I did not know what position he held, but I only got to know him in 1977 when he assumed the position in Ministry of Commerce. Thank you, says counsel. Question: you testified in the court earlier that Wanrat told you that in a meeting. He told you about the National United Front of Cambodia in early 1979. According to your biography I presented to you earlier, you joined the army on the 14th of June 1972. Can you tell the court, back in 1972, did you ever hear of the words National United Front of Cambodia when you first joined the army in 1972? Response: I do not recall this point, but at that time they gathered the youth forces in order to inscript them in armies to fight against Lon Nol forces. Question: now I turn to the place where you work in Tuol Tumpung. You said that you saw Khieu Samphan talk to the workers. He talked briefly for a few words and then he went on walking. Could you tell the court who were accompanying Khieu Samphan when he were visiting that place? Response: thank you. There were not many people. Wanrat was closest to him, and he was considered a messenger. There were 2-3 messengers walking after him. They were at distant from him. Question: you refer to them as messenger. Who did this messenger work for? Can you clarify? Response: I do not know. Back then I did not know how the leader works. So long as I saw people accompanying the leader, I would refer to them as messengers. Question: therefore, is it fair to summarize that those who were accompanying Mr. Khieu Samphan at that time were Wanrat and a few, 2 or 3 other persons together with Mr. Khieu Samphan? Is that a fair summary of your statement? Response: that is correct. Question: earlier you testified in court that you observe one gesture, a body gesture that Vanrat show toward Khieu Sampon. You said that Vanrat follow Mr. Khieu Sampon and then he normally bow as a gesture of respect for Mr. Khieu Sampon. Is that what you said? A response. That is the truth. Of course, he walked very politely after Mr. Khieu Sampon. Council. Mr. President, Mr. President, I would like to request that the witness be directed to imitate the gesture of Vanrat when he was walking after Mr. Khieu Sampon back then. The President. The request made by the Defense Counsel for Mr. Khieu Sampon is not appropriate, therefore it is not entertained, and witness need not do that. Counsel. Thank you, Mr. President. I move on. Mr. Witness. When Mr. Khieu Sampon was following Mr. Khieu Sampon and you say he bowed politely, could you describe the event at the time? A response. I would like to add to this. He bowed respectfully, but it was nothing so much noticeable. I think it was a mere show of respect for somebody more senior. Thank you. Question. At the time, is there any way you could estimate the age of Vanrat since he was your direct superior at that time? How old was he? Response. I could not guess, but he could have been in his 50s. He was rather short, and he was of medium build, and I think he was in his 50s. Question. So in your observation between Mr. Khieu Sampon and Mr. Vanrat, who was older according to their physical look? A response. Mr. Khieu Sampon was taller, he was thinner, but if we talk about age, they were around each other's age, and if he was older, he could have been only a little older. Question. Could you please be more precise? Who is older according to your observation on their physical look? My apology. Mr. Khieu Sampon could have been 1 year or 2 years older, but this is my guess. Thank you. Now I turn to the period close to the fall of the Democratic Cambodia regime. You said that you attended a meeting with Mr. Khieu Sampon. It was held on the 5th of January 1979. Do you recall testifying to this effect? Response. Thank you. Yes, I stand by my statement as I made it yesterday. I attended this meeting. This meeting was a training session, and I already made it clear yesterday. Thank you. Question. Can you tell the court the location where the meeting was held and Mr. Kyu Sampon attended that meeting? The venue of the meeting was somewhere I cannot recollect. It was somewhere in Borei, Lao. So I cannot answer with precision because I do not recollect it well. Question. Do you recall the time of the day when the meeting was held? Response. No, I do not recall the time of the meeting, but it could have been in the morning, but I don't recall the exact hour of the day. Question. According to your statement, the meeting was held in the morning, but you do not recall the time of the meeting. Is that correct? Response. That is correct, because I do not recall the time, but it was held in the morning, but I don't know what time in the morning was the meeting held. Question. How long did the meeting last? How many hours, for example, did the meeting last, if you do not recall the time it started? Response. It took approximately 1 hour and a half, and then the meeting was dispersed. According to my estimation, I do not recall it exactly, but the meeting did not last long. It was about 1 hour and a half or so. Thank you. Question. You have said that there were other individuals attending the meeting. They were from different units. Could you tell the court as to how many people attended this meeting based on your estimation, on your observation of the event at that time? Response. Thank you. I did not count the participants, but there were many people. They were from different ministries. They were not only officials from Ministry of Commerce, they were from Ministry of Transport and other ministries as well. There were relatively many people. There were, I guess, up to 100, but I did not do the counting, so I did not know the exact number of people. I cannot be precise on the number, but I could only say that there were many people, not only 10 or so people. Question. Can you roughly describe the location where the meeting was held? Now, for example, the building or any, near any landmark in the place where the meeting was held. I know that you do not recall the exact location, but can you give us an indication as to, for example, the building also where the meeting was held? Response. I apologize. It has been a long time Since then, I do not recall it. Thank you. Question. You also stated that Mr. Khieu Samphan presided over this meeting. Was there any other leaders presiding over the meeting at the time? Response. To my observation, I only saw Mr. Khieu Samphan. I did not see any other leaders. Thank you. Question. When you were attending this meeting, you saw Mr. Khieu Samphan. And when Mr. Khieu Samphan arrived, what did he say, if you can recollect, in his opening of the meeting? Response. At the time, I actually do not recall every word he said, but I can recall some of what he said. He told us that all comrades, when you went back, you had to dig trenches for yourself because Americans bombardment was imminent, and if there was a bombardment, then we had to fight back. We had to be ready to fight back. Question. Can you please expand on this, the substance of what Mr. Khieu Samphan said? At that time, according to you, Mr. Khieu Samphan wanted everyone to be ready to resist against an opposing forces in Phnom Penh. Was it mere information for you and others to retreat from Phnom Penh, or to resist against the opposing forces in Phnom Penh? Response. He asked us to be prepared, and we had to dig trenches, and I did not know whether or not he wanted us to do anything else, but we, as the laborers, we were asked to dig trenches. I did not know the overall situation. And then after we left the meeting, we were in a state of confusion because we did not know what we had to do. But we understood that war would be imminent. Question. Do you recall who from your unit attended that meeting beside you? Response. I do not recall. When we were working over there, we stayed together. I do not even recall all of them. At that time, we lived together with many people, and people came from different directions. Some were from North Zones and other from other places. There were many people who attended that meeting from my place at that time. Thank you. Question. When you were attending that meeting, did they discuss the advancing forces of Vietnamese soldiers? Response. After the meeting, just one day after the meeting, we heard gunfires, and the gunfire came closer and closer, and people started to leave the city. And I saw particularly young children came on the main street, and that was chaotic, and I noticed that war war was imminent. It was as what Mr. Kyu Sampon warned. Question. You said that the situation was imminent. There was changes in the environment. Can you please clarify this point? Response. On the 5th, the day of the meeting, Mr. Kyu Sampon told us that even though there was aerial bombardment, we had to dig trenches. But then the next day, we saw that the situation was different. That's why I said that it was different. Question. Were there bombardments in Phnom Penh, aerial bombardment in Phnom Penh back then on the day? Response. I do not know, but the next morning at around 7 in the morning, all of us fled the city. We got to Po Chin Tong, then to Stung Min Chai, and then after that we heard the artillery shelled to Phnom Penh, and everyone fled for their life at that time. Thank you. Question. On the day of your meeting, which was on the 5th of January, did you hear artillery shell or gunfire from any corner of the city? Response. Yes, we heard, but the sound of gun fires and artillery shell was somewhere far from the city. Some people told me that it was somewhere near Nhat Luang or the other side of the river bank in Nhat Luang. But then at night, the sound got closer to the city. Council. Thank you, Mr. Sim Hao, and I have no further question for you, Mr. President. I thank you very much. I have no further question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, witness. I'm Arthur Verken, one of the international lawyers of Mr. Kyu Sampan. I will not keep you for long. To begin with, I would like to come back to this meeting that you said you attended before the Vietnamese arrived, and where Kyu Sampan delivered a message. Now, I want to understand this correctly. What you're saying, I believe, is that at the meeting, Kyu Sampan called for resistance, that you dig trenches and set up ramparts to stop the Vietnamese. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. We were asked to dig trenches for our protection and to avoid being bombardment.
So you had to dig trenches where you were around Phnom Penh, is that right?
Yes, we were instructed to dig trenches at where we lived at our respective locations. That would mean to avoid being hit by shelling or bombardment.
So what you're telling me is that the whole purpose was to protect yourselves, or was there any other intention?
It is my understanding his instruction is for our self-protection in order to avoid any danger, because it might be the time that a war could come to us, so we should protect ourselves in the trenches.
Okay, well, tell me if I'm wrong, but essentially the point was to save lives rather than counterattack the Vietnamese troops.
I did not know about whether it is for the attack of whoever, but the instruction was to dig the trenches for protecting ourselves from being hit by shelling, by bombardment or grenades. And how could we attack anyone because we were laborers and we did not bear any arms?
Je vous remercie.
Thank you. In the things Khieu Samphan was telling you at the time, if you remember, did he advise certain individuals to leave the city temporarily, to run away, if you like?
No, he did not tell us to leave, but we actually ran away based on the actual situation. That is on the morning of the 7th, and the Vietnamese arrived, and we all fled for our life. And we could not stay there as sailings were everywhere.
Je crois que
when you were answering questions from the DC CAM staff, and that was the only time you talked about this event, you said that, as far as you were aware, the other leaders had already left Phnom Penh. Can you remember making that statement, or have you forgotten?
I don't fully get your question.
en 2003, vous avez...
In 2003, you were interviewed by some people who came from DC camp to interview you, and on that occasion, you told them that the day before the arrival of the Vietnamese in Phnom Penh, when you attended that meeting, Mr. Khieu Samphan spoke at that meeting. Do you recall referring to that? Do you have the reference, dear learned friend?
Alors il s'agit...
The reference is 19.177, that is IS 19.177. The reference in French is 00679-722, and in Khmer it is 00055-252. Actually, I was wrong when I referred to the French version. There is no French version. I was referring to the English version, and it is on pages 38 to 48. It is a DC CAM document. There is a mix-up in this document, which is strange. In that interview, this is what you stated, and I quote, "Only Khieu Samphan remained in the country." And you even added that Khieu Samphan only left after the arrival of the Vietnamese. Do you remember saying that? If yes, please tell us more about it.
I cannot recall it in details. However, in that meeting, I can only recall he said that they all left except him.
Et il vous a demandé de...
And he asked you to dig trenches in order to protect yourself. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
J'ai deux autres...
I have two other areas to ask questions on. It will be very brief. The first has to do with your two consecutive statements given to the investigators who were sent to interview you in 2008 by the co-investigating judges. In that regard, I noted that you refer to the arrest of Comrade Tap, and I would like you to talk about it. So that was the first interview you gave to the OCIJ investigators, and the document is E3/472, and it is an interview of the 7th of March 2008, and it is on page 4 in the French version. You talked about that arrest, and you said the following, and I quote, "The persons in charge of the arrest numbered 4. They came in a vehicle whose number plate was red, and the numbers were too tiny to identify." End of quote. May I request you to read the Khmer version as well? The Khmer version of this statement, which corresponds to what I have just read out in French. To the extent that you gave information on what was written on that number plate in your second interview, the one you gave to the investigators and also before this chamber, I would like you to explain the apparent contradiction. On the one hand, you say that the number plate was too small and you couldn't read it, and you subsequently said that something was written on it and you could read it. Can you explain to us this discrepancy between the two statements?
Actually, yesterday I already clarified the matter. It was not 870. I saw a plate number in red color, and the letter was M70.
Très bien.
Very well. This is the last question I want to put to you. It has to do with information you gave in your revolutionary biography. And the reference is 19.177. I would like us to look at the last page. The ERN is, in French, is 0081391, and in Khmer, the ERN is 000536664. There is no English version. And this is what you state, and I quote, "My fifth elder brother joined the Vietnamese army in 1970. However, in 1971, he left the Vietnamese army and came back home. On the 1st of January 1974, he joined the revolution and the Revolutionary Army at the same time, end of quote. May I ask you to tell the chamber why, or whether you know why your elder brother left the Vietnamese army?
As for my elder brother, and it has something to do with the Khmer tradition. At that time, he was kind of silly to join the North Vietnamese group, and he went to Siem Reap, and in 1970, and in 1971, my father was seriously sick, and all the children came except him. And he's supposed to arrive by noon, and my father actually died at that time, and then he stopped doing anything else.
Alors, si je comprends bien votre...
If I understand your answer correctly, what you're saying is that your brother returned to Cambodia, or rather to your native region, after the death of your father, and as such he did not attend your father's funeral. Is that what you're saying, sir?
He had been away for quite a long time, and my father came to be seriously ill. He was seriously ill for 7 days, and it was a coincidence on the day that he left the army. He arrived home at noontime, and we were all together, and that was the time that my father passed away. So allow me to say he quit being a soldier by that time.
J'ai compris. Je vous remercie.
I have understood. Thank you, sir, for your answers. I have no further questions.
President, thank you. And Nguyen Chia's defense, do you have any questions to be put to this witness? If so, how much time do you anticipate?
Mr. President, I think we only have 5 minutes of questions, so it might be maybe a good idea if I ask them now, then we can have a break and then go on with the TMM meeting afterwards. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. I just have a few questions. Yesterday you were asked about events around April 1975, 17 April 1975. You might remember that you were asked about you standing on Road 6, and that you were asked about whether troops of the insurgent forces selected former Lon Nol soldiers or officials from the crowd which was evacuated from Phnom Penh. And your answer was that you haven't heard of such a thing, or that you haven't seen such a thing. My question to you is, have you, in a later stage, heard about Lon Nol officials or soldiers being selected from the people that were moved from Phnom Penh?
I already stated before this court that the removal of the people were separate from the removal of soldiers, and I had no knowledge about that. I knew that the people were evacuated from Phnom Penh, and I witnessed that. That is after the liberation.
Going back in time, Mr. Witness, you have testified yesterday that you have engaged in battle with the Lon Nol military in the period 72, 73 and 74. Did your unit, when engaged in these fightings, ever arrest or capture Lon Nol military?
While I was living in my battalion, there was one or two arrests in Kampong Thom province, but personally I did not make any arrest. But I saw one or two were arrested within my battalion.
Do you remember what happened to them once they were arrested?
After they were handed over to the commander, I did not know where those people were sent off to.
In the time that you were a soldier of the Revolutionary Forces, have you ever witnessed, have you ever seen executions of Lon Nol soldiers or officials?
No, I did not witness any killing of the arrestees. But yes, during the fighting, there were some casualties on both sides, and we had to collect the dead bodies of the soldiers.
Is it your testimony that the only dead Lon Nol soldiers that you have seen were casualties from battle?
Yes, the casualty from battle on both sides, but I did not witness any arrest and later executed of the arrestees.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Thank you, Mr. President.
President, thank you. We would like to inform the parties and the public that the hearing of this, the hearing of the testimony of this witness is now concluded, and we will take a short break. And after we resume, we will continue with our trial management meeting, which was not completed for the morning session, and we will resume after the break. Mr. Somehow, the hearing of your testimony is now concluded, and you may now be excused from this courtroom, and we are grateful for the time that you gave to testify before this court for the last 2 days with patience and best effort. And your testimony may contribute to ascertaining the truth in this case. And Mr. Somehow, we wish you all the very best. And bon voyage. We will now recess, and we will continue with the evidentiary hearing on Monday next week. And for Monday next week, we will hear the testimony of TCW 384. That information is for the parties, the support staff, and the public. Council, you may proceed.
Oui, Monsieur le Président, merci.
Yes, Mr. President. Thank you. I just want to say that Mr. Kyo Sampan is requesting the Chamber's leave to return to the cell downstairs since the proceedings have stopped.
President, thank you. Yes, we were about to make that announcement. Court officer, in collaboration with Visu, please assist Mr. Somehow for his return to his residence or wherever he wishes to go. And Duty Counsel Mom Rati, you may also leave the courtroom. And security guard, you instructed to take the two accused back to the detention facility and have them return to the courtroom on Monday the 17th of June 2013 before 9 a.m. As for Noon Jia, bring him to the holding cell downstairs, which is equipped with audio-visual means for him to follow the proceeding remotely. The court is now recessed for 15 minutes, and we shall resume at 3:05, and we will then resume our trial management meeting.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រុមឆ្លង